Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Without Context podcast. You are joined here with our regular, at this point, co-hosts of mine. We've got AnxietyLasagna and we've got SharkyHat,
Oh,
and this is our 17th episode, which means we've been doing this for more than 1 month at this point. And yes, we have been more than 1 month for a while, but saying it out loud is wild to me because for a lot of content creation for me, I'm not speaking for you guys, but content creation for me is very difficult. And I'll say just off before we get started into what we're talking about, I have 6 different videos of different times I've recorded myself drafting Magic the Gathering. I'm not saying anything. This sucks. I'm not entertaining by myself.
with an episode a week, we've actually been at this for 4 months.
Mhm.
I was
Shockingly.
gonna say, when you said it, we've been doing this for more than a month. I'm sitting there like, haven't we
No,
been doing this since August?
We
Yeah.
definitely have, but me saying that out loud is me putting that into the ether that yes, you are consistent at this. Keep going.
It's like me and my channel is like post a 3-minute video 4 months after the last 3-minute video came out.
Yeah.
We'll get this down eventually.
However, today we are talking about difficulty in gaming in general. There is a lot of discourse around it, I think, where it veers into almost ableist territory if you kind of go into a little bit of it. But however you think about it, this should be an interesting conversation to have between the three of us who ostensibly play games that are maybe a little too hard. But what we're going to start off with here is a game or two that you've played that you found very difficult. What was so difficult about it? And did you beat the game? And I think we will start with Anxiety Lasagna.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So is your episode.
I think it is my month. No, my month is over. It's
No,
December.
but you still picked the
December.
episode.
Well, I picked the episode.
Oh, I think we had a consensus of
Okay,
you two on the episode.
Whatever. I'm ready. I can talk. So I think for me, 2 hard games that I've played, neither of them I finished, and I think they're difficult in different ways.
Mhm.
First one is Adventure of Link for the NES.
That's
That one I
side-scrolling.
feel was hard. Huh?
Is that the side-scrolling one?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the side-scrolling one with the really weird graphics. That was a huge departure of what it looked like from the original one. That one was hard because after playing the original one with my grandmother, who beat that game 8 ways to Sunday, she didn't know how to beat that game either. And it's another one of those games where it just drops you in the world and just says go. And I played it before the advent of the internet and before I knew about things like Game Informer or whatever the Nintendo version of it was, where you could seek out game guides. So
Nintendo
me and my
Power.
cousins would play Nintendo Power. I was like, Nintendo Insider didn't sound right, so I just said Nintendo's version.
It's Trixton.
But I don't think I accomplished anything in that game because I don't know if it did a good job even giving you a little bit of direction, and I feel like in a side, the way that game was set up, I felt like you needed it. But I was also really little and haven't tried playing it as an adult. Another game that was hard in a completely different way was Donkey Kong 64. And I played that game as far as I could play it the summer after I graduated high school while I was healing from wisdom tooth extraction surgery. And had a strategy guide up and was doing pretty fine with the game. And then it's hey, beat the original Donkey Kong in order to progress in the game. Couldn't do it. There was no other way to make it through the game than to beat Donkey Kong, the original Donkey Kong. So I just gave up and I've never picked up that game since. Other games that function like that one, where I think you had to collect bananas in order to unlock other things, Mario 64 functioned similarly, where you had to collect stars. Banjo-Kazooie, where you collected music notes to unlock doors. There were other avenues to get around, where like if you got stuck on a level, there was other levels you could go to. Whereas I could be wrong, but I from what I remember, like you had to beat the original Donkey Kong in order to progress in that game, and I couldn't do it, so I never got to beat it.
Yeah, my memories with Donkey Kong 64 are short-lived too. I remember I played it for a bit, and it's just I can't remember why, but yeah, I was like, this isn't the game for me.
And it sucked that that's how it ended up. Not that, like, at the time, in order to play that game when I first got it back in, like, the late 90s, early 2000s, you had to get that, like, expansion thing to put into the N64 in order to play it. And then I could never, like, I didn't even end up getting to enjoy the game, even as an adult. I'm like, oh, so I had to buy extra hardware to play your game? And then you put this roadblock where if I'm garbage at the OG Donkey Kong, I just can't play your game? Okay, cool, thanks.
My memories of Donkey Kong are the DK rap.
A classic, an absolute classic, especially I think on TikTok. Late 2019, there was a different version of it that went viral. It's like, and then there's Chunky. He's dead.
The only thing that really like sticks with me from Donkey Kong 64 is the not funny. Didn't laugh. Meme of him dancing. Like that's the only thing. That's the only thing in modern day that has like stuck with me from that game, besides the DK rap, because it pops up in like meme videos every now and then.
I would say I probably played between like 70 and 80% of that game, which made the fact that I couldn't progress even more upsetting. Couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in that game besides like the treehouse that you start in. There's like an alligator, I think it's like King K. Rool's little bastion is shaped like his head.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't beat the original Donkey Kong in it, and I couldn't tell you a single other thing about the game.
I think one of my favorite things was the little girl one played the saxophone, and I was like, "Yo, I play the saxophone."
Her name was like, no, it couldn't have been Daisy. They already had a Daisy character.
Donkey, Diddy, Dixie Kong.
Dixie.
I forget who the other.
There's Lanky and Chunky.
Lanky and Chunky, and then
who was the meathead one?
That was Chunky.
And then there's the old one.
That's mean. But anyway, those were my hard games. I think later on we'll talk about like difficulty sliders. I think we'll talk about it later because I have a couple of things I can talk about that, but I wanted to cover this question first before we move into that. So all right, I pass it
to Sharky.
They're probably hard because I played them when I was younger, but mine definitely are from Nintendo and Super Nintendo. Mm-hmm. I would be remiss talking about the Nintendo if I didn't talk about the Ninja Turtles game with the underwater level that you had to like swim pixel perfect past seaweed or it would like damage you and like all this other stuff. And it's like a timed mission too, so it's like extra stressful.
SNES side-scrollers in general are just their own thing.
Yeah, side-scrolling NES games are brutal. So.
Isn't that the same? Is that the same generation as like the Lion King, the game?
Yes,
I think
I'm gonna be talking about that one.
I've heard tales. I've heard legends.
I think Kristen had a hard time with that one too. Like I think that's one of the games that she has a hard time finishing. Mm-hmm. But still in the Nintendo generation, Ninja Gaiden was just brutally hard. Because I think if you went back far enough and it came back, the enemies respawned. So like you had to just keep pushing forward.
But it's kind of like Link's Awakening, right?
Kind of.
Link's Awakening is derivative of Ninja Gaiden.
Just like Hannah Montana is derivative of Dune.
Yeah.
I think Ninja Gaiden might have come out after, but I'm not sure.
It did.
But
it did. I admit it.
But then you have like the game that's not difficult. Well, it is difficult. It has like a difficulty curve to it, but it's like insultingly abusive also. Is Ghost and Ghouls and Super Ghost and Ghouls. Because it's like it's hard as shit to get through the game. And then when you beat the final boss, it was like, it was an illusion. Play through the game again. Beat the last boss again to get the real ending.
What the heck?
It is a notorious thing,
Just
but it's
punches you in
like
the gut the entire time.
it's abusive because like you're just it's like punching you in the face to get to that last level, and then you get to that last
so
level and it's like
mean.
do it again. So
That's so mean.
and
Before we continue, can we pause for a sec, because I have to run to the front room real quick
you got it.
and come back. Sorry.
We're back.
Continue.
So those are like the classic games. I mean, there's probably a ton more that I could go through. Mario the Lost Levels is like the hardest Mario from the All-Stars pack, where it's like, hey, look, here's like Mario 1.5. Here's all levels I got cut, and it's like these are like abusively hard.
Just invisible blocks everywhere. Like, oh, you're jumping, oh, you're falling.
And then like just more modern things, which I guess we're gonna cover. Games like Dark Souls are just hard for me to play. Mostly not because of the mechanics or the game itself. I mean, it is a game designed for a certain kind of player. But like me trying to play it is just like it's just difficult because it's like, oh, I'm just dying to like one hit things.
Yep.
And all this other stuff.
That is how I feel. Like, I don't play it, but my fiance got Metroid Dread when it came out, like the day it came out. And watching him play that game is so frustrating. Like, I've asked him numerous times, I'm like, are you having fun? Because I'm getting pissed off for you. Because that game sort of demands that you just keep throwing yourself at something until you figure it out. And like, you'll figure out one thing and then it throws a second thing. So then you die and have to get through the first thing to try and figure out the second thing. And he'll be playing against the same boss for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, I would have rage quit by now. Like, that doesn't seem fun to me. It seems like it's too hard. And he's like, that's Metroid games. Like, I like having to figure it out slowly and methodically over time. And I'm like, I can't. That's not for me.
Your fiance put it into words for me. That's a Metroid game, baby.
That's
Even the older
games.
ones.
Nintendo was like, formula, and we ain't going to change it. We're going back to the 80s and 90s in difficulty.
When we got our Switch, when we first got our Switch, that was like the first game, like when he realized you could get like NES and SNES games. So I guess it's SNES for Metroid. And he got that original Metroid, and I would just be sitting there like doing stuff around the house and hear the stupid like all the sounds from that game. I'm like, if I have to hear you get another item in Metroid, like, I'm leaving. Like, I need to go for a drive. But yeah, he's still playing that game. Like, he's like, I gotta see how fast I can get it done, or like how this or that he can do. So like, obviously he finds it fun, and like players find that experience fun, but that would seem too hard and terrible for a gamer like me.
Yeah, I was playing through, and more recently I've been playing Souls-like games that have the same kind of difficulty curve to them. Remnant, and I was playing The Surge, which are like kind of modern fantasy and a sci-fi style of Dark Souls. And it's like, I feel like compared to actual Dark Souls, they're far more forgiving in terms of like the difficulty curve. Because like, I don't know, it's just something about Dark Souls games. I just have a hard time playing them, even when I'm like trying to play. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna not take this fast. I'm gonna go nice and slow, all this other stuff. But something about them just keeps like punching me in the dick every time I try to play them, and I'm like, I can't play this game.
I feel like it takes a certain type of masochist to play a Dark Souls game.
Yeah, my friends, when my old roommate and I played and recorded it, it was like 50 something episodes, and like he was playing through it in like half-hour segments. But I was just like, episodes would be like multiple episodes for a boss, multiple episodes getting through an area. Just, I was like, God, you have to have like the mindset to play this game.
Balls of Steel.
Yeah. But yeah, that's mine. Mostly the classics, because they just don't make them like they used to. So.
We're not even saying that as boomers. It's just legitimately true. We'll get into that like in a little bit. but mine is a side scroller, or one of two different side scrollers from back when Disney almost exclusively made. Like every time a Disney movie came out, there was a port for it, and it was a side scroller, and they were like almost like reskins of the last game.
Yeah.
So one of them I bring up is the Jungle Book, because that one if you're trying to 100% that game, you're going to have a hard time. You want to get all the little doodads and knickknacks and little like bananas or whatever the hell. You're going to have a hard time unless you already know where to go, where to jump up, where to like step on this one thing to jump to the next platform. But the other one that I don't remember beating it. But another game that
flying in front of you.
Fatality.
But another game that I had that we touched on is The Lion King. Just famously extremely difficult, and the side scrollers, like people may play side scrollers nowadays, but side scrollers back then, when you get to like here and you go forward, if you try to go back, that's a wall. You're not going back. That once the camera moves, you're done. You're stuck here. Commit. And I remember particularly there's parts in The Lion King where you would jump onto a platform and you'd have to jump up and over where the camera is to get somewhere else.
Yeah. It was a brutal game for children.
Yeah.
So
kids play this. Kids played that regularly.
Good lord.
Yeah,
it's a different time.
Different time.
Do you feel like, since you all are much more avid gamers than me, and like this is something that I've even started to identify, just sort of notice or observe, do you feel like those older games feel harder because we were younger when we were playing them, or because the developers were still trying to figure out what worked well for a game?
It is a little bit of half and half. As a kid and without like access to the internet like we have now, most of the time you just don't know what to do. So you're just kind of going around trying to figure stuff out. It was also back then they were trying to figure out gameplay and like new mechanics and just new styles of things. But I think they also had to have a more challenging difficulty curve to them because that was just the game. So you needed to get your time out of it. You know, it's like, hey, if we make this game too easy, you know, it's not going to be like worth the money that somebody pays for it. And like looking back, yeah, even like now, like thinking back on prices when I was picking up like Super Nintendo games in like an EB Games and everything, I think they were like $50-$60 for like a Super Nintendo game in like, the mid 90s. So
that was a lot of money for the 90s. Good lord.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so it's like if I'm paying like $50 for this game, I don't want it to be too easy where I finish it in an afternoon. And that's why you think of like back to your childhoods, there were games that you played every weekend trying to beat because you just either ran out of lives and had to do it over again. There was like no way to save, so you just had to play through it. And it's just that natural difficulty to kind of get the illusion of, you know, your time is going into the game.
Get that good dopamine hit.
But then you had the games that were just trying to figure stuff out and they just could not like make mechanics at all, and it was just confusing as shit to try to play them.
There was one game that I didn't talk about, but I got this game for my 5th birthday, Mega Man X.
Yes.
Not difficult on its own when you're playing through the regular levels. Like the bosses make sense. You can experiment with the different power ups that X has to beat the bosses faster. Because certain ones are weak against other ones, and that's cool.
It's a weird like rock paper scissors style. Like beat this boss first, and then it's like now you're optimized to beat this boss, and then when you get his weapon, go to this boss because his weapon's good against that boss. Yeah. So it's just about finding that level that's the easiest.
Yeah, but what they don't tell you is that one of those weapons that you picked up is strong against the final boss towards the end, and I didn't know that. and I beat my head against that final boss for 6 years, and then never played it again.
Goodness gracious. Do we want to talk about difficulty sliders?
Yeah. So before we get to that, I think there are like I've broken difficulty down into 3 different categories, and you guys can tell me if you agree or disagree with these. So the first category is the get good that many of us have figured out that games are it's just gonna hit you. It's gonna knock you the hell out every time, like
Hello,
Metroid, Metroid Dread, Dark Souls, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like all of these different games.
Yeah, Soul to me in that category, Souls like and roguelike games, and
Yes.
Metroidvania to a degree also. It's those games are made for a specific type of player, and the average player is not going to experience it the same way as them. They're going to probably be more frustrated than the people who know what they're getting into, who love to get into those kind of games and all that.
Have you played an Etrian Odyssey game before, Sharky?
No, but I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's just a first-person RPG. There's no map. There's no nothing. It's you grinding until you get to the next level, and you're probably gonna die to the next level anyway, no matter how hard you grinded.
Yeah.
That's that category. Just punches you in the gut for 12 hours. You're like, all right, cool. Can't wait to hit this again tomorrow. The next category is they're games that have difficulty sliders, but also many of them have like perks for completing it at the highest difficulty, be it like an achievement or like you get like different items for completing it at the highest difficulty, or my personal least favorite, the canon ending.
Yeah.
For if you beat it at the highest difficulty, like what was it, like Silent Hill, I think.
We're looking at you, Kingdom Hearts.
Did you see? I just sat there. I was just like,
yep. So games, some games like this is like Resident Evil 4, Painkiller, Halo Combat Evolved, the Nier series in general, and yes, Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
I saw Haley's life flash before her eyes.
I had to grind hours to get all the stupid like crafting to be able to get some secret thing that ultimately didn't matter, because I don't think they had a difficulty mode on the original release. They added a difficulty slider when they did the final remix, where they added Proud mode. But in the original, you just had to 100% that bitch in order to get a secret thing, and that was the worst. The worst.
A game that does that style well for me is the Fire Emblem series, where you can play it the more forgiving way, where it's like, hey, if my character dies, they're just fainted until the battle's over, and then I can use them again. But then you have the classic setting where if that character dies, that character is gone for the rest of the game.
You can't ship them with nobody; they're dead.
Yeah, so they have a good balance there, where it's like if you want that classic challenge, you can do it, but if you just want to play Fire Emblem for the tactics dating simulator that it is, you can just be like,
yeah,
what's the
dating simulator? We're gonna have to talk about Fire Emblem off camera.
So, well, I'll just sum it up. There's a thing that was shared in, I think, another Discord server. It's the people designing Fire Emblem thought that it wasn't how can we make this enjoyable tactics RPG? It's how can we make chess make you horny? So
yes.
And
oh my god, what?
The thing about Fire Emblem, just a quick rundown, because I think we should do a Fire Emblem series with like a proper guest who like loves the series and stuff. There's 3 weapon types, and it's like rock, paper, scissors. This one's better than this one, this one's better than this one, this one's better than this one. But the whole like other aspect of the game is to put couples together to increase their abilities. So it's just like it's horny chess.
Oh my god, I gotta play horny chess.
They get cute little cutscenes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Haley's crack cocaine. The only reason Haley wants to play Dragon Age Inquisition.
But So that's a game that does that like balance well. You can have
Mhm.
it the unforgiving way, or you can have it the more relaxed way, and it's like, oh, I lost the battle, let's just go back into it. Whereas like if you lose everybody, it's like game overs, bitch. Start over.
The
So
original Nuzlocke challenge.
it is the original Nuzlocke challenge.
So I've got one more.
Sure.
It is the games that are generally like mild in difficulty. Like you can get through it, even if it doesn't have a difficulty slider. It's pretty easy, but like it's a challenge. Except for this one section in the game that may or may not be required to the game, but it is the most difficult part of this game, intentionally so. Games like this, you touch it on Fire Emblem. Sacred Stones does this on the GBA at least. Because they have that one tower that just kicks you in the dick.
Yeah.
Parasite Eve does this. When you beat the game, you get New Game Plus, and you can go up the Chrysler Tower, showing its age. Yes.
Destiny
Can
did this to me
I-
last night. There's a dungeon that just dropped, and it's like everything about it, everything about the mechanics in each of the encounter is easy. It centers around like one mechanic, just different ways. But then there's this one part where it's like this mine's about to go off. You have 7 seconds to race across the map. And it's like you're trying to do that, but they don't tell you that there are things that you can collect to extend the timer. So it's me and two other just idiots just like banging our head against the wall trying to like outrace these bombs. And I'm like, this is such a shift from what this whole dungeon was. Like,
Can I
Yes, Haley.
add a subcategory to this one? Is the game that has a pretty steady, if like a difficulty, sort of like a curve, like where it starts off, like scales with you with difficulty, but then they add in something to make it seem harder than it actually is. Like in Twilight Princess, when you have to do that stupid escort mission where the carriage is on fire. Or in Kingdom Hearts, when you have to do those challenges that are timed, and you have to like collect a certain number of orbs. I think it's Kingdom Hearts 2, where you have like BS escort missions or like morale boost missions that don't do anything for the game. They're just there to make it seem like something challenging is happening to you. Because those things are my least favorite things. Like, never finished Twilight Princess because that stupid escort mission, I couldn't figure out how to do it, and you can't get around it. And no matter how many times I threw myself at it, I'm like, I must be missing something. And then I just never completed it. So I was like, this is stupid. We didn't need to have this. All they're doing is bringing the sick girl from point A to point B. You didn't have to make it this stupid. The game would have been fine without it. Those are the things I don't like.
Another example in the Zelda series is the infamous Water Temple from Ocarina of Time.
I was gonna say the Water Temple gets a lot of press for
I-
that.
When I played it, I didn't think it was super difficult. I thought I think it's the Shadow Temple was much more challenging. But that could just be me looking back at it when I played it 20 years ago. So who knows? Those. Yes.
I have things to talk about with difficulty sliders.
Of course.
If we can loop back. So I feel, as someone who's more of a casual gamer, the difficulty slider is my favorite aspect of gaming. So I can play games like Skyrim and Fallout. Halo is the other one I remember having a difficulty slider, where I can like flexibly change it as I'm playing, is super awesome. So like if there's like specifically in Halo 3, when I was first learning how to play like an FPS game, I was doing it at like the middle ground, like 1 or 2 steps above, like, ooh, woo, you can punch an elite in the face and it dies, versus like you can make eye contact with an elite and you die. But there was one mission I couldn't get past at that difficulty setting, so I was able to drop down, beat that mission on a lower difficulty level, bump back up to where I was, and finish the game fine. There was just like one spot that I was stuck on. And since I could change that difficulty, I was still able to enjoy the game. And like, sure, the guys I hung out with were like, oh, you had to bump down to novice for that one? That's super lame. I'm like, shut up. I'm still getting to play this game. And like with Skyrim, my fiance really enjoys like playing it at like the legendary level, where like you can get hit by like one-shotted by like half the stuff that I just sit there and I'm like, bah, you're dead. Because he enjoys having that sort of like, let me smash my face against something until I break it. And I sort of like the more immersive, like I'm sneaking through, I'm doing this, like I don't want to die as often in that game. So I think having that slider allows for more diverse gaming styles to enjoy a game, and I really appreciate that. And then there's other games where I feel they would be benefited from having a difficulty setting where they don't have it, like Pokemon. In more recent years, there's been a lot of calls to add difficulty settings to Pokemon because, like, obviously that game is for children, and a lot of us have been playing it since we were children. So over 20 years of playing the same game, you know the type advantages. You can exploit that system really fast. So if there was like a difficulty setting, maybe that would improve it, but I'm not sure. And then in my simulation games, those aren't like hard, but in order to make it more enjoyable, people like make up challenges, which like Pokemon does that with the Nuzlocke challenge. So the communities have been able to come up with creative ways to add challenge to games that might not necessarily have it, is what I was getting at. But I like difficulty sliders because I'm bad at video games and I can still enjoy them even though I'm bad.
You can go ahead.
I think they're a fantastic addition to gaming. I think there are people who just it's either by, you know, for one reason or another, just don't have properly functioning hands for whatever reason. Like, this helps them out with that. Just going into like physical disabilities and, you know, maybe even you know, mental health issues. Like, you just cannot go into a game the same way as maybe one of us can. But even outside of that, it's cool. Like you're saying, before we started recording, I was playing Persona 5, my favorite game that I haven't been able to beat. And I've just been like kicking it with that game. Just like I have it just on the I usually play games on normal difficulty. Because I feel like I'm adaptable enough that I can play this game and I'll figure it out as I go along and I won't die or lose too much because of it. But there are there are like a casual setting for the game, and there's for that game, and then there's like excuse me. There's it's a pizza, yeah. It's the and then there is like the hardest difficulty that you can play, which I don't remember what it's called. Another game that I've played that has an interesting difficulty slider is called Days Gone for the PS5. It's basically if you took Sons of Anarchy and you took The Walking Dead and just smushed them together, just like the biggest AMC jerk off ever. That's literally the premise of the game.
Wasn't Sons of Anarchy Fox?
Huh?
Wasn't Sons of Anarchy's Fox?
Sons of Anarchy was FX.
I don't know these things. I don't watch TV.
This sounded like somebody who didn't watch TV.
They're probably both owned by Fox. Let's be real. Anyway,
I think FX is owned by Disney now.
Oh, no. So the difficulty for that game, there's the easy, there's normal, there's hard 2, there's survival, and there's survival 2. I haven't thought to look at what those other the twos mean to those difficulties, but I thought that was an interesting thing, and that's truthfully what inspired this conversation to begin with. Because like I said, I play my games on normal. Because but there's a hard 2, which is just weird for the innuendo anyway, and then there's survival 2, and I'm just like, those are weird. I might look into those at some point.
Yeah, and I think a lot of open world games, a lot of like survival games have that kind of setting where it's like, hey, you can play it as the intended like survival game. Like Minecraft, you can have it as normal like Minecraft with like you have to eat, you have to do all your stuff, but then you can also just have the like free roam, and you don't have to worry about a lot of stuff. You can just like play the game as you want to play it. A lot of old first person shooters did multiple difficulty settings. Like you had Doom, you had the like normal mode, and then you had like ultra violence being like the like hardest one. And back in those days, it was just like, here's more things thrown at you, and things can soak hits a little bit better. I think
I was gonna say it's much easier to like do that with a either like a first person shooter or like an open world type of game. Because
Yeah,
truthfully, what you're doing is like adding HP to the monster
essentially.
or adding more monsters.
I think that's what like New Game for like Dark Souls does. It just adds more hit points and like other stuff to creatures and all that. Um,
Mm.
I think more recent games with good difficulty sliders are probably, if I remember correctly, the Resident Evil games. I think starting had or the older ones even had like normal and then hard mode, which was
I
like,
think that started with 4.
yeah, I know. I think some of them might have put it on like the remasters and stuff. But it's like, hey, you can play it normal with like your evened out item distribution, or you can do hard where you have less and you have to like start learning how to not shoot everything that you come across.
Mhm.
Halo, the Halo franchise, you had normal, you had the legendary mode to like play through, which was like 2 shots, you're done. So
Yep.
There were also like Weenie Hut Junior modes in
yeah,
at
Yes.
least in Halo 3, because that's where I existed. Was in
I
not
It was
super
in
Weenie Hut Juniors, but definitely Weenie Hut Junior.
it was in
I
Combat Evolved.
yeah, I always try to play the base difficulty, at least for the first run, because I know if I go higher than that, I know what to expect. If I need to turn it lower, I can. Um, I think that some games shouldn't have one. I think like if you're designing a game that it is for this type of player, for this audience, and we don't care if a mass audience plays it, then those kind of games are fine. But I think if it's a game that's going to be like wide release, Call of Duty, Halo, Pokemon, and in some cases, like with Pokemon, you're right, if like some kids are playing, or if they make like another kid centric game, maybe you should have a variable slider for how hard it is, because you're not going to have teenagers or like preteens play it. You're going to have like little kids also play it. And, if they're not playing it and not enjoying it, then, what's the point of making it if it's for that audience and they just don't enjoy the game because they can't play it? But
I
then
think it's
again,
interesting.
kids these days are also like doing 90s and Fortnite, so I have no idea what kids think about in games anymore.
Yeah.
Like the kids play Fortnite like machines now. So
I think it's interesting that we bring up Pokemon because I actually think Pokemon has gotten like more and more challenging with the different combinations of like different typings as they've added more monsters over the years. But at the same token, what they have also done is when you have encountered a monster and say you've caught it, uh, from then on, if you encounter that monster again in the wild during a gym battle or whatever, it tells you just straight up which one of your moves is super effective or not very effective when
yeah,
you tap on it.
I
It just straight
think
up tells you.
I think it's difficult in an RPG setting to have variable difficulties. I think the RPG genre is where you start having that difficulty of, can I make this game harder with the base game? Can I make this game easier without, sacrificing the gameplay behind it? Because I can't think of an RPG aside from maybe Kingdom Hearts in recent memory that has a like base or hard mode. Maybe Nier does. Didn't get around to
Near
playing Nier.
near does.
Okay, so yeah, they've started implementing it, but I think with more like classic RPGs, it probably would have just been more difficult in a harder mode or too easy in like a normal mode.
So so the thing is with many of them, they're also like we were talking about open world games where
Yeah,
like Final Fantasy 15 had a difficulty slider. But the trick is you're just adding more HP to the monsters. It's not a huge deal once you actually get down to it. Um, and Kingdom Hearts, yes, that I mean I'm almost certain that's effectively what they do is just add more HP to the monsters.
Yeah, I think this would make an interesting like point one for us to do at some point. Like, how would you add a difficulty slider to Pokemon? Because like, if you just make it so like instead of going to your first gym and they're like level 10s, you made them like level 20s or level 30s. All that's still just going to make it so that you just grind harder.
Yeah.
And then that's what you're already doing. So, like, I think that'd be a fun thing for us to maybe do as a 0.1 sometime, is theorize what a level, like, difficulty level Pokemon would look like.
I actually believe that Pokemon has a difficulty slider. It just depends on which starter you pick.
That's true, especially in the original one. You had hard mode if you picked, what was it, Charmander?
If you picked Charmander, you were going into hard mode. If you picked Bulbasaur, you were on baby mode. And if you picked Squirtle, because the first two gyms, Brock and Misty, are both weak against grass. So Bulbasaur would carry you for the first two gyms. Squirtle got you one half of the first two, and Charmander would have a hard time.
Bulbasaur was my favorite of the original 3 starters, purely because one time I was at a GameStop and they had a whole bin full of the original starters, and it was all Pikachus and Charmanders and Squirtles, and there was one sad Bulbasaur, and he is in my closet to this day. And I was like, you know what? You'll be my favorite, Mr. Bulbasaur, and Mr. Bulbasaur lives here now.
But see, it brings up a point. It's like, if you want to play Pokemon and you start picking you start by picking Squirtle because you're like, oh, I love Squirtle. I like this turtle guy. You can get through the first gym, no problem. But depending on what you catch, you get to Misty and it's just an even playing field, unless you would know that in a patch on Viridian Forest, you can find a Pikachu. So you have an electric type against the water type now. But it's just like, you wouldn't know that, like, growing up. So it's like, Bulbasaur would be like, I can pass the first two gyms. I can catch a Geodude in the cave, and then I'm good against Lieutenant Surge. So
not only are you like strong against the first two gyms, but also you're like strong against Lieutenant Surge, and then you're neutral against Erica.
Yeah.
Let's make this a 0.1 sometime. I
just want to talk about. I just want to talk about Pokemon. I just want to talk about Pokemon for an episode.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, how about 0.1? We talk about leveling Pokemon. Next week we talk about Pokemon.
Since I'm going out of town and we need to record 2 episodes anyway.
You heard it here first, folks.
We're gonna do Pokemon.
We're gonna talk about freaking Pokemon.
We're gonna talk about Pokemon, and then we're gonna do the bonus episode with the Pokemon leveling up and combine the 2 of them.
We're just gonna do that all in 3 hours. Let's go.
Let's go.
Anyways, sure. Difficulty sliders. How is there like an upper limit for you guys of like, this is bordering on I want to say like ableism up here, if a game is like doesn't have the accessibility options, like a difficulty slider or other things?
With me, I think that a difficulty slider and accessibility are kind of 2 different things.
I agree.
There are peripherals made for people with disabilities. Microsoft, I think, with the Xbox One series, started putting out like peripheral controllers for people with certain motor function disabilities. Yes. And even nowadays, you can find like streams of, I don't know the technical term of it, but people who can like blow into the tube to control their characters and all that. You see people playing games perfectly fine all the time, and they're enjoying it. It's just giving them the ability to do so. I think more games need to have accessibility options to like get people to play, rather than focusing on the difficulty of it, because the difficulty is irrelevant if that person can't play the game.
The professional player Brawly Legs plays a Street Fighter with a physical disability, and it's pretty cool to watch him like hit like the upper echelons of Street Fighter.
Yeah.
As he is.
Yeah, so I would say when it comes to accessibility for disabled or differently abled gamers, I feel it's less about the actual game, like Pokemon specifically can't, like, I don't feel like Pokemon needs to add something to make Pokemon more accessible. Nintendo needs to make their console more accessible. Microsoft needs to make their console. Yeah. Sony, whomever else is doing PCs or whatever. So I think it needs to happen at that level, and then it'll trickle down, which I hate that. I hate trickle down anything.
I hate that phrase. Say you're a
But if-
millennial without saying you're a millennial. Anyway.
But if we start with making the tools accessible, then I think difficulty will follow. But then you could also argue that, like, if you make difficulty sliders, or that are, which I wouldn't know as someone who doesn't have any outward disability, I wouldn't know what they'd need. So it'd be best to ask them what they felt.
Yes, that would probably be
But
better suited for.
yeah,
people who are
but just
differently
from
able.
a completely uninformed outside perspective, I don't
think-
see it. But that could be an interesting question to pose to our audience.
Mhm.
If there's any of those who want to share.
I think games just right now are just too complicated in terms of controls also. Because it's like you think going from Nintendo, you had this, and you had 2 of these, sometimes 4. Or Sega, sometimes 6 because they were weird. But now it's like I have these 4 buttons on top too to do all these other things, and sometimes I have to hold one of these and press another button to do another thing.
And if you're on the Switch, motion control.
I just think
Looking at you, Shrines in Breath of the Wild.
And that's why I think accessibility and the tools to let people play are just as important right now, because some games have a lot of controls in them. But you have to also make it so the people who have to use these unique devices to play the game have the ability to do so. And at that point, I feel difficulty just evens itself out. If they're having a hard time, they'll adjust it. If they want a more challenge, they'll up it. I don't think there's a mandate that requires difficulty sliders, but I do think that we should push for accessibility and inclusivity in things, at least to a better degree than we've been doing.
And make it affordable.
And make it affordable.
A whole other can of worms. But yes,
I'm actually
affordability
going to,
is accessibility.
I'm actually going to look that up here.
Aren't 5 games like $70 right now?
Huh?
I'm going to look up to see.
$70.
So here's what it is. Xbox did the adaptive controller, and it's something that has like a bunch of. It's like a game. It looks like a 2 touchpad thing with a bunch of plugs in the back, and you can plug in a different style of controller for each of those buttons. So let's say I can't move this hand well, I can put in like a push button for the B button and stuff like that. It's something that you can like mix and match the controls going into this thing. And at base, this thing is $100. Like, I still feel
How
that's
much is
probably
a regular controller?
60.
Yeah, that's some ish right there, my guy.
Yeah.
But I think also it's
Bill Gates.
But see,
that's some shit right there, Bill.
I think also like that's just that controller. I'm not sure like if you can actually get. I'm trying to see like if it comes with everything, or else if you have to buy the rest of it.
So it's like a KitchenAid stand mixer where like it comes with some stuff, but if you want to do everything, you have to buy all the different attachments.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to buy the different attachments for this.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay,
like,
that's ridiculous.
A lot of these things are like $60 or higher.
Gates.
So
isn't like Phil Spencer or whatever his name is, the guy in charge of like the Xbox?
So there's a base. So there's a basic. There's a basic kit for it. That looks like it's $100. I think it comes with basic buttons and the adaptive controller. But then you have all these other options for people who might have like harder motor functions. And it's like a button. It's just like a big red button that can be pressed, and it's $65. So it's like
I want to hear what Haley has to say here real quick.
Yeah.
I need you to Google me something, Sharky.
You got it.
I need you to Google me the price of the Staples Easy button.
Staples
like
Easy button.
That was
like
easy.
$5.
$10.
$10.
Why is your fancy red button Microsoft $60 when you can get essentially the same thing at Staples for $10. Bill, I know you just had a divorce. I'm sure it was pricey, but come on!
So
Get it together, Bill.
So right here, it looks like there's a something called a quad stick. It looks like it's one of the like breathe tube controllers, where it's like you can blow into it to do one thing, suck to do another thing. It's an attachment piece. It's $500.
What the fuck?
So it's like, this is not accessible. That's the thing. Like this, you're saying that these are accessibility options, but these are not accessible prices.
So I have some unique insights into this because my older brother has cerebral palsy and he is differently abled. There's been in this room there are all sorts of like apparatuses that we've tried over the years to like try to get him to stand or walk on his own. Unfortunately, he has overly sensitive nerves, so it's just never going to happen. But like all of those things that are there, like there's this weird thing that he would sit on like this, or he would stand up like this, and he would like rest there, and they would try to like stretch him out a little bit. All of those are paid for by Medicaid. Medicaid paid for his wheelchair. They paid for his like all of these little devices, the G tube that's in him, like the tubes that we get regularly, the formula, the wipes, everything. This isn't going to be covered by Medicaid because it's not a medical device.
Mm-hmm.
It's non-essential. This is bullshit. That because this is how much these chairs and stuff would cost people if they weren't covered by Medicaid.
And then there's another one that's just like a grasp switch, which is just like a squeeze, like peripheral to like click a button, and that's $200. So it's just like you're not making it easier for people to play your game.
You're just putting it behind a paywall, and that's some
It's
EA shit.
Looking at that, to get a decent controller setup, if you have somebody who has no motor functions aside from, upper body, the breathe tube, the adaptive thing, anything else they might need is going to run you $700, which is more than a system.
Yep.
So
I would argue that in our Constitution, since that's something that Americans tend to care a whole lot about, not even the Constitution, it was in our Declaration of Independence, where we are guaranteed the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I say accessible gaming is the pursuit of happiness and should, I don't know, there was some kind of joke that I had and then I just lost it.
I'm so angry I'm so angry about the cost of these things and how cost prohibitive it is that I don't have a joke. I'm just pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good for like the people who run the Xbox or Microsoft or whatever to pat themselves on the back and be like, we have accessibility options. They're not $700 at all. Yes, they are. Fuck you.
Yeah. It's just stuff like that. Like, I don't think we can really start talking about like a difficulty curve because it's only going to be for, unfortunately, like a majority of the audience. But you can't get the full audience and like how they're going to experience the games either easier or harder than they should be unless you let them play the game. And I think that's something that probably needs to come first, because this episode's about like difficulty in game, but I think it's more the difficulty, getting to play is something that's way more important to me than a video game difficulty.
That's fair.
I do know off the top of my head, which I learned through Sims YouTuber / live streamer Lil Simsy. She did a pretty long, I think Halloween-centric charity live stream across the Twitch platform for a nonprofit called AbleGamers. I'm not super familiar with their work, but I have their website up now where they combat social isolation through play. They create opportunities to enable play in order to combat social isolation, foster inclusive communities, and improve the quality of life for people with disabilities. And that includes video game stuff. I'm not sure what the scope of their work is, but I can send Sharky a link to put in the description of this video if you want to learn more, because I feel like, hi, I have a master's degree in public administration. When there is government failure and private sector failure. So in this case, the private sector failure is the fact that these devices cost $700 just for someone to be able to play video games. And the government failure is there's no sort of stipend or way to make that more affordable. The third sector, the nonprofit sector, comes in to help create solutions for community needs. So I'll hopefully, I'll put the link in our Discord right now, Sharky, so you can include it. But I think
I'll add it.
That is one opportunity or a group that's doing work in that sector.
There's something to be
things are getting done.
There's something to be said about using an NPO app, because you're the top, your I'm not gonna say your government, but your government's failed you for other reasons, but your system fails you because you cannot play it, and then your government doesn't help to make it more affordable, so you have to rely on an NPO, and that's pretty shitty in my
Welcome to how most of America functions, which is a different topic for a different day, but I could talk about that for a long time because I have a whole degree in it with a specialization in nonprofit administration.
Mm-hmm. We have one educated person.
I'd love to talk about them.
We have one educated person in this group.
But yeah, I could talk for decades about why I feel nonprofit organizations are the future of governance and community assistance and action, but that is not the topic for this week's podcast.
We're scratching on it a little bit though, but I think we've kind of touched on everything. At least I wanted to touch on. If you guys have anything else you want to talk about,
no, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I feel like a lot of games should include them. Some of the more niche styles of games don't really have to, because they're going to get their audience regardless, and that's all they want. They just want their audience to keep buying. What happened?
You good? Did you flip your desk?
No, I had my desk light, which I use for lighting, precariously perched behind my second monitor, and it fell.
That's fair.
Good job.
Context.
But I also think there it goes again. Well, we're almost done. So, but yeah, so difficulty sliders aren't as important as accessibility, which is its own kind of difficulty in the world of gaming.
Well, from there, I guess we'll wrap the show for now. If you guys have your own opinions on difficulty, put them in the comments. As always, I'm keen to talk to people about things as long as you come correct about things, and I'm sure my co-hosts are as well, except for maybe Sharky, who's leaving after this.
Yes. So so I'm going to be out of town. So depending on how we can get our recording schedule done, the weekend or the Friday before New Year's might not have an episode. If it looks like that's going to be the case, then we'll do something else. But just heads up, I am going out of town and I am the editor. So
yeah, but that's neither here nor there. That's for like
we can take a holiday break,
20-ish days from now.
Holiday breaks are normal.
That would be this week is 17, next week 18, 19. That would be the 20th episode. That would be the 20th episode. So
that'd be appropriate for the New Year's.
Yeah. So we'll figure it out though. We have a few weeks to re-record, and hopefully nothing gets dated by the time it comes out. So, but
milkshake that.
Yeah, I guess that will conclude today's episode. So, you want to take us out?
Check out our links in our description box.
Check out the links. Check out everybody. Check out Charlie and Alvin's stuff. They haven't been here with us recently, but they do. I know Alvin does live stream once in a while, so definitely check him out.
Alvin live streams, and Charlie does a lot of like nonprofit stuff, and we love that for him.
Yeah, and as always, we have the flow code with all of our links. Follow us on Spotify. Tell your friends about this. When I remember to post on Facebook, share it out. We appreciate every little bit of help you guys can do. We are doing this on our own. So any little
Tell a
growth
friend to tell a
helps.
friend.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. So, but yeah, I'm SharkyHat, joined by Deca and AnxietyLasagna, and we will see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.